Alright. There we go. Turn that down. Bring that up. And I need to actually do that. Okay, there it goes. Turn that down a notch. All right. Episode 3. Runaway Room.
Glancing over my records of the late last century, I am faced by the events of a certain bitter winter. A murder in a carriage as it sped through dense London fog in the dead of night. Though the victim and the perpetrator were the only ones inside, there were multiple witnesses to the crime itself. However, none could have imagined at the time that such a seemingly obvious case as this would end in such a horrendous manner.
Interesting.
My friend, Mr. Herlock Sholmes, once said of the incident, "I believe that perhaps that case was indeed the prelude. The beginning of a long concerto that impressive Japanese student and I were to play together."
Amazing. Is this really just a railway station?
Railway station or not, I've never seen such an enormous building before.
And look at all the steam locomotives. This country is incredible.
I feel like I'm dreaming.
So this is the capital of Great Britain.
So, where to?
Oh, hello.
Climb aboard. I'll take you wherever you want to go.
In that case, the Supreme Court in Whitehall, if you wouldn't mind.
My pleasure. I suppose you're visiting students from abroad, eh?
Yes.
Thought so. Well then, I hope you enjoy your stay. And welcome to the centre of the world, Great Britain's mighty capital, London.
Ooh, fancy. Clockwork Town. This time we actually get to start before a murder. Yay. What an incredible place. So imposing. It's almost suffocating. This place is breathtaking. It's like a fortress. There are some stone buildings like this in Japan now, of course. But they've only been built in the few short decades since we opened our borders to the outside world. An authentic example like this has quite a different impact, wouldn't you agree? A far cry from the wood and paper most of our buildings are constructed from. certainly unfamiliar. I think there's more to the differences than just construction materials. What is this place again? This is the Lord Chief Justice's office, Naruhodo-san, in the Supreme Court of Great Britain. The Lord Chief Justice. We had instructions to report here at this time. If circumstances were different, we were supposed to let the Lord Chief Justice know that we had arrived from Japan. But Kazuma can't. No. So instead, we are here in a different capacity, as envoys, to report the news of Kazuma-sama's death. Yes. And having delivered his or her message, an envoy's duty is done. So we'd have to return to Japan. If we want to remain here in Great Britain, we have to take Kazuma's place as the law student selected for the study tour. Yes, which means you need the requisite qualifications as a lawyer. Which is what I've been studying for. Here in Great Britain, it is the Lord Chief Justice who appoints lawyers. So that's the second reason why we're here, to have you officially recognized as a lawyer. The only way we'll be able to remain here in London. I'm up to scratch. Good morning. Sorry for keeping you. Whoa! Closing. Oh. I trust you aren't too exhausted after your long voyage from Japan. Seems I'm 1 hour, 12 minutes, and 47 seconds late. My apologies. No, don't mention it. We're never happier than when we're standing around with nothing much to do. How fortunate. So, introductions. I am... not entirely certain how to pronounce that. Male? Strongheart? I'm Miles Strongheart, Lord Chief Justice of the British Empire. And I feel like a little mouse under an elephant's foot. Come on, Mr. Naruhodo, don't be a mouse! Oh, it's an honor to meet you, Lord Chief Justice Strongheart. I'm Ryonosuke Naruhodo from the Empire of Japan. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, welcome to London, the capital of our glorious British Empire. Yes, thank you. Hey, the bots are all gone. Sweet. Oh, I don't feel like there's people here when they're not. So, what are your impressions of our capital so far? How do you like London? Oh, help! I've been so nervous ever since I got here that I can't remember a single thing about the city. It's simply splendid, isn't it, Mr. Naruhodo? Oh? We had such a wonderful view of some of London's streets from the carriage on the way here from the station. Everything is so impressive and grand. I must say I'm almost lost for words. I'm glad to hear you like it. The city boasts tramways, pipe water, and gas, even cables supplying electricity. We spearhead every revolutionary new technology in the world. Every visitor to London is astounded. Oh yes, astounded is the word. Thanks for saving me there, Susato-san. Everyone seems so jolly and full of vigor. Yes. There's much excitement about the upcoming great exhibition we will be hosting here in London. Great exhibition? Cultural and technological achievements from around the globe are to be expected here in our great city. Be the greatest spectacle of its kind in history. Will make Paris's World Fair look like a toy shop. Gosh, I can hardly imagine how magnificent it's going to be. Great Britain's capital city is nothing but magnificent. London is the center of the modern world. Even if you do say so yourself. Sun will never set on our great empire. Perhaps it is fate that in these progressive times we welcome visitors from the land of the rising sun. Lord Chief Justice, I think you were expecting a student of law for the study tour, weren't you? Absolutely. Mr. Kazuma Asoki, if my memory serves. That's right. The government has already been telegraphed a full report on the situation. Instead, the young man lost his life aboard the steamship bound for our shores. Amazing. The news reached him before we even arrived. My country naturally extends its deepest condolences to yours. Oh, thank you. You honored this appointment specifically to inform me of the news? Yes. We are here in the capacity of envoys from Japan to report the sad news in person. Tell me you Japanese are a people of protocol and courtesy. I see it's true. It is with some regret that I must inform you. The death of the young lawyer means the study tour arrangement can no longer proceed. If you would just hear us out, Lord Strongheart. You have to say, madame. It's about the study tour. Mr. Naruhodo here would like to make a proposal. Would he now? Well, Mr. Naruhodo. This is it then. Truth. The thing is, Lord Justice, Lord Strongheart, I was wondering if perhaps you would consider allowing the study tour to go ahead. Don't misunderstand me. Britain would ideally like to see the tour go ahead. Not a lawyer from your country can be done. Well, in that case, what if there was someone else? Another lawyer from Japan, I mean. There's something I don't know. Only a single lawyer was invited to Great Britain from your country. And that was Mr. Asogi. At least that is what I have been led to understand. Boy, he is hard to keep doing. Well, the thing is, this is really going well at all. Just can't seem to find the right words to say to this man. Mr. Naruhodo! When things here, if I'm not careful, what am I gonna say? If there's someone else here from Japan who could be described as a lawyer, it's me! It's me. I can do it. That's so. I mean, I don't actually have any qualifications as such, but... No qualifications, you say, and yet you still claim to be a lawyer. I have acted as a lawyer in court before. Only once, as it happens. Hasn't been to help me, and I was the accused. Glossing over the details. Been spending every spare moment on the journey here to Great Britain studying. I've learned all about British law and court proceedings while I was on board the SS Burya. That's cool, Glalov. Also, hi. The voyage from Japan is some 50 days, I believe. Not what you might call a full education. Qualified lawyer here in Britain, not only do you have to need a university degree in law, you must also complete several years of training. I realize it's far too short a period of time, but I can't just go back to Japan. Kazuma, Mr. Asogi's journey has only just begun. Coming here on the study tour was all he thought about. I have to carry on and do everything he planned to do. I know it must sound like I have an overly inflated opinion of myself, but I would do anything to prove that I have what it takes. Any test you care to set me. Just one chance, that's all I'm asking for. Please. 31 seconds. Sorry? Your opening statement there, Mr. Naruhodo. 31 seconds long. Not too brief, not too protracted. Perfectly judged appeal, I would say. I think I see what this guy's thing is. Which is a skill that would stand you in a good stead as a lawyer. Oh, thanks. So, you're willing to put those words to trial, are you? I'm all for entertainment. Huh? But let me ask you one thing first, sir. Yes. say you intend to do everything Mr. Asogi planned to do. Firmly set on that path. Well, yes, that's my intention. See. I am imagining things. His expression just altered a fraction there all of a sudden. Very well. You have your wish. Give you a chance. Test to become a specially certified lawyer. Pass or fail is entirely down to you. Really? So, what form will the test take exactly? Tell me, Mr. Naruhodo, what do you consider the role of a lawyer to be? Well, defending people, of course. Well said. So, let's have you defend someone. Huh? Timing is perfect, in fact. There's an apt trial about to begin later today. No advocate has been appointed for the defense as yet, so this will be welcome news. Today? Straight away? If you manage to secure a verdict of not guilty, you'll have passed my test. Be simpler. Myself into these situations. Well, could I ask what sort of trial it is, Lord Strongheart? Yes, good question. I remember. It's a murder trial. Of course, they're all murder trials. A murder? Extremely simple case, I understand. You really can't lose. It's easy to say. I should mention, just in case. Defendant is found guilty. Will of course be sentenced to capital punishment. Capital punishment? He'll be put to death? In Great Britain, murderers are sent to the gallows without exception. Okay, I gotta pick a different voice for him. I can't keep doing that voice. It's too deep. Unless I can manage to do it from the chest. Presumably, you read that much in your short C-based introduction to British law. We can't possibly agree to such a test. We would be toying with a man's life. I am the Lord Chief Justice, and I've decided it's acceptable. But you can't do that, can you? There's no need to overcomplicate this. All you have to do is ensure that you don't lose. Defendant may live or die depending on how well I perform in court? If I lose, hanged. Mr. Naruhodo, you've come to me claiming to be a lawyer. If you want me to take you seriously, you need to prove you're willing to do a lawyer's job. You say you intend to see through the will of your compatriot, Mr. Asogi. Would like to understand just how far you're willing to go in order to make that happen. To my resolve. What's the matter? Fallen silent. I'm sorry. Time is pressing. The trial begins shortly. I need an answer from you now. What's it to be? What do I say? Do I agree to this absurd test? Of course. Alright then. If I have to give you a decision now, my answer is... I can't do it. I can't get the words out. 15 seconds. Your decision-making needs work if you want to be a lawyer. That was too slow. So, it's as I suspected, is it? Sorry? You have noble intentions, but lack the resolve to see them through. The test is cancelled. Thank you for stopping by. Go and acquire your ticket for passage back to the east tomorrow. This conversation is over. Yes, Lord Strongheart. Thank you for offering me a chance. Mr. Naruhodo! Sorry, Mrs. Sato, but what could I do? It's alright, I understand. Do? Not an easy decision to choose whether to defend a man in these circumstances. But resolve has absolutely nothing to do with it. What are you trying to say, madame? I think what Miss Susato means is that no matter how badly I'd like to be recognized as a lawyer and stay here in Great Britain, risk another man's life by treating his one and only chance at a trial so trivially would be utterly unforgivable. Exactly the same way. I'm sure the defendant won't see his trial as a test, as some kind of experiment. A lawyer may fight for his clients in court day after day, but for each one of those clients, the particular day they stand in the dock may be the only chance they have to prove their innocence. No, I was wrong. I'm not qualified to do that job yet. Sorry for wasting your precious time, Lord Chief Justice. Wait, Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, was there something else? It's approximately 20 minutes by carriage to the Old Bailey from here. Leave immediately, you'd still be there in time. But I just said that it's quite serious in what I told you. The defendant in this case has literally no one to advocate for him. What? At this point, he can't hope to find someone to represent him. Trial will begin without a defense. If that happens, one possible outcome. Receive the most severe sentence the judge can pass down. That's awful. That is the truth. Why does it have to be like this? Please don't expect an answer to every question. The cold, hard truth of the matter is that there is only one person now with a chance to save this man from a very miserable end. That is you. Really his only hope? So, what do you say now, madame? Me? What do you mean, Lord Strongheart? Said it wasn't an easy decision to choose whether to defend a man in these circumstances. I agree. In my estimation, it's purely and simply a matter of resolve. Oh! Time is up here. I have a meeting to attend. Let's leave in 2 minutes and 16 seconds. So, venture into our great city and enjoy yourselves. He's gone. Old Bailey. They just charged me, made me in the leg and broke one of his arm lasers doing so. Oh, goodness. If we're gonna do this, Mr. Naruhodo, we must leave at once! Miss Susato, can I... Oh, dear. She's taken the stance. Miss Susato, can I just ask you something? Careful! From this position, I can perform a Susato takedown in an instant. I know. Mr. Naruhodo, you heard Lord Strongheart. The trial starts immediately. If I need to throw you, I will. You know, you could just say, I think we should hurry to the courtroom. You need to ask me anything, and it better wait until we're at the Old Bailey. Alright, I guess we're gonna go then. To the Old Bailey. Lest we get thrown. Again. Who we're defending. Oh, thank goodness, we're in time! There's still 15 minutes until the trial begins! I knew a horse-drawn carriage could go so fast. We're gonna rattle loose. Did you hear what I said to the driver when we climbed aboard? Get us to our destination in 5 minutes, driver, and there's a guinea in it for you! One of my favorite lines from the Sherlock Holmes stories, and it worked quite perfectly. Sure, why you're so pleased. I thought we were going to die, and we had to pay gold for the privilege. Well, as we arrived here before the trial started. Yes, I suppose there's that. Anyway, I don't understand it. Court clerk said the defendant should be here, but there's no sign of him at all. So this is the Old Bailey. This room for defendants is to wait in is grand. Are you alright, Mr. Naruhodo? Feeling tense, that's all. This gives me the same sense of foreboding that I remember from the Supreme Court in Japan. Oppressive air, as if the building itself is going to crush whoever is about to be sentenced. Like only yesterday that I was the one about to be crushed. Yes, whoever the man you're to defend is, I imagine he's feeling very alone at this moment. Top of the morning to you, madam. Sir. What are we looking at? Ah, okay, that works. What are yous doing, following me here? Things are getting fair desperate, are they? Sorry? Would you look at those expressionless faces? From the east, are yous? We're from Japan, yes. Ah, Japan is it? Right. Say no more. So, how much do yous need? No, we're just here because... No need to explain, fella. I've been here myself, so I have. No place to go, none indeed. Barely a penny to your name. All while in a strange, faraway land. Actually, we haven't found a place to stay yet, no. 'Tis grand, 'tis grand! Start by giving yous 1,000 guineas. Say nothing now. Ha! 1,000 guineas? Please, Mrs. Sato, you don't have to shout. But 1,000 guineas is enough to build an entire mansion in the most prestigious area of Tokyo. What? 'Tis nothing to me at all. Like to ensure I have sufficient funds to weather a rainy day, you see. And enough wealth to buy the city of London 2 or 3 times over. Rain even fallen one day? Obviously, you've not been to London. Well, even so, we couldn't possibly accept such a large sum of money. Ah! Hit me in the eye! Don't get me wrong, fella. I'm not giving it to you no strings attached. I'll be wanting you to do something for me. Oh? To be honest, this is a little embarrassing. Trial's about to begin, you see. It's for me good self here. I'll be in the dock. So now, what I want you to do... Come along with me and stand there beside me. Officially, you'd be my lawyer, but that's just a little detail now. Oh, well, the thing is, don't worry about a thing. All you have to do is stand up there next to me. Nothing more. Otherwise, you see, the trial is going to start without me having any kind of representation at all. Was true. Seems odd that he wouldn't have any representation, especially if it's an open and shut case. Lord Chief Justice wasn't making it all up. I can't read. I'm terribly sorry to have to ask, but does that mean you're the defendant in this trial? Bluster and blazes! Do yous not know who I am? Me, one of London's biggest names. No, sorry, we've only just arrived in the city, you see. I see. I suppose it isn't altogether impossible. Well, just next to Hyde Park there in the center of London is another beautiful park. Sorry, a park? What? It is called McGilded Park, full of blossoming flowers in the spring and singing birds and whatnot. I donated it to the city, so I did. An entire park? In central London? The city of smiles. That's my vision for London. There's nothing Magnus McGilded wouldn't do for the city and its queer old people. That's amazing. Really extraordinary. But now they've the gall to say I'm a good-for-nothing criminal. Me, Magnus McGilded. What is the matter with the London police, I ask you? Ha! Alright, don't pass out. Mr. Naruhodo? Perhaps now would be a good time to introduce ourselves while the gentleman catches his breath. Good idea. Mr. McGilded, the thing is, we're actually here in London to study British law. We're law students on a study tour from Japan, you see. So, if you don't have a lawyer for the trial yet, and you'd be happy to put yourself in our hands, we'll do our best. What was I after saying, you daft idiot? I've given you 1,000 guineas to stand up there next to me, haven't I? Well, yes, but I wasn't really offering to just stand up there next to you. Oh, I think I see what's going on here. Sorry? I know what you're thinking. This Chancellor of a fella claims to have more money than the Queen. That's true. Blazes Kitty hire himself the finest lawyer in all of England. Because he did it. That's the only explanation. Well... Actually, yes! Although I want to say not at all. After all, don't we believe in our clients, that's what we do. Not at all, although it is a little strange to be honest. Why don't you have a lawyer, I mean? That would be the fault of the Reaper. Sorry, did he just say Reaper? Aye, the Grim Reaper of the Bailey, Lord Bark Van Sykes. He's the prosecutor. The prosecutor is... the prosecutor is the Grim Reaper? When Van Sykes stands for the prosecution, they call the accused his sacrificial lambs. To this day, every single trial in which he's been the prosecutor, accused has been damned. What? So it's reached a desperate situation. No one willing to stand in defense against the fella at all. You could say he's a living legend of the Old Bailey. Goodness! Lord Barrack Van Sykes? He must be an exceptionally talented prosecutor then. Ah, I get you, Glaylov. Talented isn't the word you're looking for, madam. Cursed. Cursed? What on earth? Defendant is summoned, and his counsel. Please make your way into the courtroom. Trial is about to begin. His counsel, that would be me. Oh, 'tis time! Well then, fella, don't let me down. But I don't know anything about the case. You haven't told me what happened. See, you showed your face here. Made up me mind, so I had. Sorry? I decided to defend myself in there. How would that have worked? Then you made an appearance. Student of law, wouldn't you know? 'Tis no accident. I can assure you that. 'Tis fate. So don't get cold feet now, please. Yeah, but we don't know anything about this. Get the pirates to surrender by having their leader run into me at full speed, fail to get through my heavy frontal army, damage himself a lot, completely breaking one of his legs from my return kick, and knocking himself down. I literally know nothing about the case, or about this man who stands accused. In fact, the only thing I do know now is that I can't turn my back on him. Mr. Naruhodo! Man has no one. I'll have to stand alone in that courtroom, armed with nothing to defend himself. It's something that Kazuma would never have allowed to happen. Counsel for the defense, what are you doing? If you're late for the start of the trial, you will lose your right to stand. I'll be right there. Huh. Happening then. First trial in a British court. You're watching over me, Kazuma. I have no idea how I'm going to manage this. Ooh, fire. So this is the highest court in Great Britain, the Old Bailey. Centuries of history in this place is palpable, isn't it? So different to the Supreme Court in Japan. It was both imposing and serene at the same time. The atmosphere almost makes words redundant. Whatever the country, determining a person's guilt or innocence is always a solemn affair. May I say something, Mr. Naruhodo? Oh, yes, what? Your eyes look ready to pop out of your head again. I know, I just can't help it. Well, the judge has an appropriate beard. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session. We are here today to determine the guilt or innocence of Mr. Magnus McGilded. I'll call upon the counsels for the prosecution and defense to declare their willingness to proceed. Prosecution is fully prepared. Must be the Reaper of the Bailey. Really does look fully prepared to dispatch his next poor victim to the underworld. Counsel for the defense. You appear to be Eastern. Do you speak English? Uh-huh. Oh, yes, of course. Sorry. Asked if the defense was ready. Couldn't be further from ready if I tried. Those eyes please me, Bonese. Shroud your fear, your doubt, your trepidation. They run wild, clinging to some phantom notion of courage. Quintessential look of a sacrificial lamb. Certainly seems like a vampire. A cold shiver just ran down my spine all the way to the tips of my toes. Now, Mr. McGilded. Yes, my lord? Stand accused of murder. Capital offense. You could be sent to the gallows if found guilty. Quite sure you wish to entrust your defense to this foreigner. As I've already said, my lord, 'tis a grand thing to give opportunities to the young. Even if the fella is a student from some little island off in the Far East. It's not the British way to ignore the dangers to yourself and give the less fortunate a fair chance. I'd like to think that acts of chivalry do the great British Empire proud. Listen to Mr. McGilded. What a fine gentleman London has in him. Did you hear that he donated £5,000 to the government the other day? Mother, please, may we go and play in Mr. McGilded Park? Seems as though everyone in the public gallery is firmly behind Mr. McGilded. That's unusual for a change. Definitely welcome news. He certainly has a way with words. Guess he couldn't convince anyone to defend him. Eloquently put, Mr. McGilded, and most laudable sentiments. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm sure I need hardly remind you that you 6 members of the public have been selected for your impartiality. You ready to proceed? Oh, we've got a jury! Yes, my lord. If the task is to send riders to the gallows where they belong, I'm more than ready. At the manor, his lordship always says we should dispose of rubbish promptly. Naturally, I agree. Ha! Any criminals here would soon be wishing they never set eyes on me. Village Jill. Oh, don't mind me, my dears. I'll just be getting on with my knitting. Must finish these mitts for my grandson. Mr. I go from one female voice to another female voice, and I completely lose it. Mr. Naruhodo, those people are... The jury, yes. That's something we don't have in Japan yet. That's right. I've only read about it. But here in Great Britain, the court's final verdict depends on the opinion of these 6 jurors. The judge passes sentence according to the law, but the jurors determine guilt based on common sense. So the defendant is ultimately judged from 2 completely different points of view. How exactly do the jurors give their verdict? That I don't know, but I'm sure it'll become clear as the trial progresses. Yes. Prosecutor Van Zeeks. My lord. It's been a number of years since we've last seen you here in the courtroom. I thought you'd renounced your fame. I'm known as the Reaper of the Bailey, my... infamy rather than fame, I would say. Yes, 5 years have passed since I last spread my wings in this capacity. So, what brings you back? Is there some change of circumstance in which the court should be aware? I leave that to your imagination, my lord. So the Reaper's been out of action for 5 years? Why did he have to choose today of all days to make a comeback? Don't lose heart, Mr. Naruhodo! As you wish, sir. Court nevertheless welcomes your return. Now then, opening statements, I think. Summary of the case, if you please. My lord, Lordship is aware this is a case of overwhelming simplicity. Must be the only ones in here who aren't aware. The incident took place in the late evening, 3 days past. The hour was some minutes after 10. The victim was a maker of building bricks known in the community as Thrice Fired Mason. Sorry, Thrice? Very accomplished craftsman. Bricks he fired were said to be almost indestructible. The victim's corpse was discovered in an omnibus in service on the streets of London at the time. The dagger that had been thrust into the victim's abdomen is to be the ultimate cause of death. Here is the autopsy report from the investigating officer at Scotland Yard. Thank you, counsel. Accept that and the photograph as evidence. Alright. Let's see here. Report prepared by Scotland Yard coroner. Cause of death, internal hemorrhaging as a result of a single stab wound to the abdomen. After the victim taken on the omnibus, the knife in the abdomen is clearly visible. His face is partly obscured from view by an old crooked hat. Okay. And one further item of evidence. Prosecution wishes to submit these as well. These are... Good lord! Is that blood, counsel? Yes, my lord. Seized by a policeman who arrived at the scene. Gore-soaked gloves, taken from the hands of the accused when he was arrested. What? Mr. McGilded's gloves had blood on them? He may have done something stupid and reached out for the knife just like you reached for the gun. Yes, I will accept these as evidence as well. Blood stain on the right glove, okay? I get into this. Backed into a corner before I've even started. Continuing. According to the driver of the omnibus, there were only 2 passengers traveling inside his vehicle at that time. Only 2? Obviously, one of those passengers was the deceased brickmaker, Mr. Mason. Other. Accused, Magnus McGilded. Well, rather damning circumstances to say the least. Defendant, what say you? Well, of course, I have no recollection of such a thing. Mr. McGilded! Be sure, I rode the omnibus that evening. But whenever I'm in a carriage, I'm taken with a fierce tiredness, and I always succumb to it. Claiming to have been asleep. It is the motion of the carriage, my lord. Lenten as it is. When I opened my eyes again, it was a desperate sight before me. The body of a man I'd never laid eyes on before in my life. Now I ask yous, what good-hearted soul wouldn't rush to help a fella bleeding from his stomach? I wasn't about to start worrying about my gloves now, was I? I reached out to give the man a hand. Blood got on the gloves then. The man had been killed. Fortunately, the statement of the drivers is only the beginning. What? That's not all of it? There were multiple witnesses. The precise moment at which the brickmaker was fatally stabbed. Order! Order! The killing took place. Only the victim and the accused were inside the carriage. And there were witnesses to the crime. Case of compelling evidence. The nail coffin for the ghost. Thank you, Counsel. The circumstances of the crime have been made quite clear. Your testimony from these witnesses, first of all. That's what I'm wondering. How could there be multiple witnesses? Wish is my command. Bailiff, bring the witnesses in at once. Witnesses, your names and occupations. My name is, well, everyone calls me Beppo. I drive an omnibus in the East End. Bruce Fairplay, a banker in the city. My name's First, Lady First. I make hats for gents. And I see that you're quite, something at it, based on your own headgear. Let's begin by confirming the facts. 3 days ago, short time after 10 o'clock in the evening, all of you present in the stand were in an omnibus and witness to the aforementioned incident. Is that correct? Yes, sir. Quite right. Yes, sir. That's right, sir. Very well, then. Let's proceed to your formal testimonies, please. Each of you will tell the court precisely what you saw. Okay, before we do that, I'll take a peek at... Ooh, now we got an armband. Kazuma's. The lawyer's name is embroidered on the inside here. Look. Kazuma Asogi. This was his band, of course. He had his heart set on the study tour in Great Britain. Sure he would have found the truth he longed for here. Lost his life before he even had the chance to see the place. I have such a strong sense of his hopes and dreams when I look at the Sarband, though. Alright. 54. Thrice-fired Mason. Occupation ring. Time and cause of death. 15th February, between 10 and 11 p.m. Stabbed once in the abdomen with a knife while journeying in an omnibus. How'd you doing? Oh, hemorrhaging resulting from the trauma. Okay. Photograph. Oh. Pressing a button. Don't know if that's going to be important. Anything else of particular note? Deep stab. This is definitely blood, isn't it? Most pleasant sight to be confronted with on our first day in London. Well, nothing will come of grumbling now. No, by the way, is Mr. McGilded right-handed? Yes, I believe so. He was toying with a coin in his right hand a little earlier. Pity. I think he'd been left-handed. I think blood on either glove would be fairly incriminating, really. He might be really guilty. Well, technically that twist did happen. It was the last bus of the evening, so I had a few customers. I remember it well. The victim and the man accused of killing him were sat next to each other inside the bus. Out of the blue, the accused just reached over and plunged a knife right into his guts. That's right. He stabbed him. I screamed. I did. Couldn't help it. As soon as I heard the scream, I stopped my bus. And then I saw it too. Unambiguous testimony, I must say. Exactly, my lord. These men witnessed the incident in the omnibus with their own eyes. I'd like to ask a question, if I may. Yes, Counsel. Well, this testimony makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. Why not? Well, the incident took place inside a moving carriage, didn't it? Clearly stated from the outset, yes. Well, in that case, how could those two witnesses possibly have seen what happened? There's no way they could have seen the inside of a moving carriage. Hi, Peanut. Oh, wait. Read that civilization in the Far East, in the Eastern Island nations, was a good century behind our own. You're here in London yourself. Really so ignorant about our omnibuses. Huh? Tell me, my Nipponese friend, have you even traveled in an omnibus? Well, no. We have only arrived in London this morning. No matter. Arranged for us all to see for ourselves, the actual scene of the crime, that is. What? What do you mean? Actual scene? How? Carriage is designed to be moved, after all. Presumably, you understand that much. Yes. The omnibus in which this bloody crime took place is here today, in this very building. Sure? What? The entire carriage? Bailiff. Bring forth the stricken omnibus. So that's an omnibus. The omnibus. If they could bring something so enormous in here. Britain's courtrooms are amazing. You can see, the omnibus is pulled by 2 horses and can carry up to 8 passengers. Four passengers seated inside the cabin, another 4 on the rooftop deck above. Every Londoner knows. Best views of the city's architecture and sights are to be had from the top of an omnibus. Should I point out to our foreign guest that there is a skylight in the roof, allowing a view of the interior from the seats above. Ah, skylight. Oh! He drops at last, I see. That answers the question. These 2 gentlemen were occupying the rooftop seats on the omnibus when the murder took place. That's how they came to witness the grim incident. Skylight. That makes perfect sense. Well, Counsel, this is a first. In all my years behind the bench, I never experienced the crime scene itself being brought into the courtroom. There are a number of important clues remaining inside the carriage, my lord. I'd like to submit the omnibus itself as evidence. It's the prosecution's wish. Yep. Very well, I see no reason why not. This omnibus is hereby formally accepted as evidence. I can't believe it. The entire crime scene entered as evidence? Yes! Great Britain is simply extraordinary! I helped myself a lot by giving that omnibus a thorough examination, seeing as it's here. Let's continue with proceedings then. Cross-examination, Counsel. Expect this Nipponese stray to understand the intricacies of a British court's cross-examination rights. Right. First cross-examination in a British court. Focus, Ryunosuke. Focus. Yep. Okay. Before we get started on that, I want to examine Phoenix Wright Omnibus. Ah! So this is the roof deck of the omnibus. Oh, you must have a wonderful view of London streets from up here. So people sit all the way up here on bitter winter nights with the cold air rushing past them? They have to pay money to do so? I can't imagine how cold it must feel. That made me think of something horrible. Imagine being dragged around the city in the freezing cold as a punishment? Perhaps that is the real price you pay to stay out late. That's the question. If we can pin down that they were on the front seats, then that would make a big difference. You could certainly see inside the carriage through this opening, that's for sure. Yes, and there's a lamp in the enclosed cabin, so I'm sure the witnesses would have been able to see quite clearly. It's not good for us. Okay, so it's the same thing. Now let's go inside. Oh, can we? Well, let's open the door and go inside, shall we? The scene of a murder. It's horrible. Okay. So, we're sitting here. They could potentially see the seat where the victim was. Ah, that's a poster for the great exhibition that's due to start 6 months from now. A lot of focus being drawn to the Crystal Tower, the centerpiece of the whole exposition. Ooh, the Crystal Tower! It's under construction already, I believe. People over London must be fizzing with excitement at the prospect of such a grand event. Yeah, but the problem with the Crystal Tower is you gotta climb it all in one go and you can't stop and save partway through. Oh, wait, wrong game. The seat looks reasonably soft, but it's actually rather hard when you sit on it. Only just wide enough for two gentlemen to sit side by side, really. Of course, an English gentlewoman would be dressed in such finery. It would be quite impossible for her to climb up to the roof deck, so she would have to be seated in here. A woman in a kimono would have the same problem. Those are very impractical, aren't they? That's blood that's soaked into the seat. The victim's, obviously. Yes, and that seat would be clearly visible from the roof deck. Did you really stab someone in full view of the other passengers like that, I wonder? Well, it was after dark, and there was a lamp on in here, so perhaps the culprit couldn't see anything outside through the skylight. When you look at it, it seemed like it was a hack. Seeing it. Also, no. Skylight. It's quite a large skylight, isn't it? Yes, quite large enough to afford a good view into the cabin from the roof deck. Doesn't appear to be a handle or catch of any description. I suppose it can't be opened from outside the cabin, at least. Yeah, we're looking at another locked room mystery, kind of. Maybe not exactly locked, but for all intents and purposes locked. The seat has a handle, it seems. There's stuff in here. Looks like all sorts of equipment that might be needed to keep the omnibus running. Feeding tubs, tools to repair wheels, blankets, horseshoeing shoes, tools. So it's a storage compartment for the coachman to keep his things, it seems. Doesn't seem to be any space for passengers to stow their luggage, that's for sure. Well, I don't imagine it would be very convenient for that purpose anyway. Person could hide in there, crawl out, stab him, crawl back in. guarantees, but it's a possibility. And we'll keep our options open. Have you seen enough? Let's step back outside then. Well, if he wasn't sitting opposite of him, then maybe. Definite issues at play. Alright. Let's go over the testimony. It was the last bus of the evening, so I had a few customers. I remember it well. Right. Yes, I think it was sometime after 10, wasn't it? Oh yes, sir. That's right, sir. Ever so cold it was. Freezing, in fact. Everybody seems to be this. Are you doing anything? Alright. You had 4 passengers on board at that time. Is that correct? Yes, that's right, sir. Not all traveling in the same parts of the bus, of course, though. No. And there were no other passengers when the incident took place. No one alighted, for example. You're quite right with that, sir. No other passengers like that. No, none. Seeing any changes? So nobody fled from the scene of the crime, then. Yeah, that seems a little odd. I have to say, the boss insists on it running, he does. Every evening. That last bus of the day. But I do wonder sometimes if it's altogether worthwhile. Sorry to say. What do you mean by that? Well, with it being so cold and everything, only making 20 pence on the run, you see. Yes, I spend that much at the pub on the way home, just trying to get warm up again. The victim and the man accused of killing him were sat next to each other inside the bus. And you saw them through the skylight and the roof of the carriage. That's right. Sit up there on the top deck, the window's right there at your feet. There's a lamp on the inside, so I had a pretty good view. Two of them were sitting on the same side of the side. So yeah, someone could have gotten out of the compartment. The two of them were wearing hats, and I couldn't exactly make out their faces. But there's not a shred of doubt in my mind that it was Mr. McGilded. Can you be so sure? Well, how can I put it politely? McGilded is a gentleman of rather small stature. Wouldn't have mistaken him for anyone else. Let's not forget that when the vehicle came to a halt, only people inside the enclosed cabin seized Mr. Mason and Mr. McGilded. There's no room out here. I really wish there was. And out of the blue, the accused just reached over and plunged a knife right into his guts. Actually saw the exact moment it happened. I already testified to that. For our fair dinkum, hard-working city bankers not considered trustworthy these days. Oh, no, I didn't mean that. This is no good. It's backup. Perhaps you could just tell us what you saw in a little more detail if that's... My lord! Juror number 3, what's the meaning of this? My mind is made up, my lord. Completely and utterly made up. Made up about what? I don't like the stinking rich. Never have. They're always up to something or other that they shouldn't be. Every one of them. That little leprechaun of a man is no exception. Well, he can't fool me. Oh, this is how it's working. There's no point wasting time listening to any more of this. That's my opinion on the matter anyway. It is precisely what I was about to say. Foreman of the jury, it is my duty to set a good example to my fellow jurors. So on top of everything else, we've got to deal with internal prejudices. That could make things interesting. What is happening here? Let me see. Ah, yes. It seems that's how the members of the jury give their verdicts. With fire? Apparently, yes. White for innocent and black for guilty. As the 6 members of the jury make up their minds about the case, one by one, they each cast a ball of fire into the great scales of justice, as we saw a moment ago. Those enormous scales fall completely to the black side. Does that mean... Let's do our very best to make sure that doesn't happen. Now I'm even more worried than I was before. Very well. Court acknowledges the change in the jury's stance. Counsel for the defense, please continue with the cross-examination. It's a nightmare. That's right, he stabbed him. I screamed, I did. Couldn't help it.
Hold it!
He stabbed him, you say. You're sitting up on the roof deck, were you? Yes, that's right, sir. I was up on the roof seats. I remember seeing the little gent sitting next to the fellow that was stabbed. Thinking about a new hat design, you see. So gazing absent-mindedly around. But then I happened to look down through the skylight. It was sticking right out from his belly. That great huge knife. A grim sight indeed. Help me at all. Jury looked like they're even more convinced my client did it than they were before. It appears to have made everyone even more dubious that Mr. McGilded is telling the truth. If only we had some evidence to counter their suspicions. Mr. First. Oh, yes, sir. This is the knife. Saw. Oh, good grief! Yes, that's it! The very one, sir! Is that... Counsel, this is the blade that was driven into the victim's belly like a stake through the heart. You would know all about that, wouldn't you? A blade of considerable size, Counsel. And furthermore, the scabbard is emblazoned prominently with a certain initial. Letter M, which seems oddly... No. Agnes, perhaps. Gilded, possibly. Your pick. It seems this particular big name in London is at stake. I could do that, but he just seems like a rich baritone, deep voice to me. But there are M's everywhere. Like in Mason.
Objection!
This blade is far too extravagant for a poor brickmaker to own. No. Weapon of murder almost certainly belongs to the accused. Not conclusive, but certainly compelling, Counsel. My lord, if you'll forgive the interruption. Juror number 2. Go on. Mr. McGilded is a pillar of society and a gentleman. A gentleman's word should be sacrosanct. However, those of us in service know we must accept hard truths. Wait, what are you about to... Dispose of the rubbish. No! I don't wish to cause offense. I do like to eradicate all traces of filth and grime. I have painstakingly typed every word uttered here today and cross-referenced all the facts. As such, I am now in a position to draw the only logical conclusion. That is 4 out of 6 jurors. Not again. That's 4 out of 6 jury members who proposed a guilty verdict. There are only 2 left. We've had it. Every time I press these witnesses for more information, I just make the situation worse. Nevertheless, what we need more than anything else at the moment is more information. We're still very much in the dark. I'll just have to keep pressing the witnesses, knowing that more sparks may well fly. We mustn't give up hope that we'll uncover something that will give us a way to fight back. But... Alright, I'll keep trying. Can't give up. Just need to keep calm and listen to the witnesses' statements again. Okay. I haven't examined the knife, so let me do that. Suspecting so. Ornate letter M. Undeniably Mr. Magnus's McGilded's initial. And it's beautifully gilded too. It must be very valuable, I should think. Ah. What is it? Look at this M. Turn it upside down, it becomes a W. This could change everything. A W? Yes, this is one of those, turnabout cases. I'm sure of it. I'm afraid I don't know at all, but what I am sure of is that this is an M. Oh, that idea was quickly quashed. That part is the sheath, isn't it? Are you alright, Mr. Naruhodo? Oh, sorry, yes, I don't really like blades. Oh, those don't seem like the words of a man with a large katana slung from his waist. That's not a blade, that's Kazuma's soul. Anyway, no sense in delaying it. Let's see what the blade looks like. It's bloody, as one would expect. It looks a lot like blood. It surely is blood. The victims! An Englishman's blood looks a lot like a Japanese man's blood. Did you think it wouldn't? Sorry, it's just that we've only just arrived here in Great Britain. It's a little hard to adjust. Yes, I do understand. See anything out of in particular that's of note? That didn't really inform me a whole lot. Although... maybe it's just my imagination, but it seems like the blood should go up further. Considering how far it looked like it was stabbed in. It's possible that it's a different knife, but I doubt it. Made as that is. Alright, so when it happened, the only 2 people in the enclosed cabin, victim and the defendant. Somehow, 3 whole people witnessed the man I'm trying to defend do the deed. I don't like to be pessimistic, but we do seem to be in a rather difficult situation here. What am I supposed to think here? Is Gilded really innocent? Could it be? Before we jump to conclusions, our first task should be to gather information. We need to understand the case much better than we do at the moment. Yes, you're absolutely right. Listen to this witness statements a little more carefully this time. Okay. I didn't press the last statement, so let's do that. What exactly did you see? Oh, well, sir, that would be the passenger, sir. Yes, collapsed on the floor, he was. By the passenger, obviously you referring to the victim, Mr. Mason, the brickmaker. And the only other passenger, that knife in his hand, like this. Oh, it seems he did handle the knife, so it's possible, but there's a bit of a question. If he pulled the knife out, why was the knife still in the photograph? Possible they stuck it back in. But still. By the other passenger, obviously you're referring to the accused, Mr. Magnus McGilded. And then he plunged it down like this, stabbing the other passenger in the belly. Seems off. What? My lord, I wish to speak. It's juror number 5. I get that you too? Master of the London Guild of Coachmen. The idea of a murder being committed in one of the city's carriages is utterly abhorrent to me. It wouldn't be right to make a decision before facts, though, I said to myself. Heard enough now. The horse is bolted, as they say. No, please, just keep an open mind a little. Gee up now, Silverblaze, the finish is in sight. Beppo is a long-standing member of the guild, and I trust what the man says. Oh, thank you, sir. It's too kind, sir. This is too unkind, sir. Now means that 5 jurors agreed to condemn this man. Grandma, counting on you. Madam Juror number 6.
Yes, dear. What can I do for you?
Heard the testimonies of the witnesses in the stand.
Oh, yes. I certainly have. Still got my hearing, you know.
Pray tell, are you yet to pronounce your leaning?
Well, dear, the thing is, I'm a creature of habit, me. I always go to the park at around this time of day and sit on a nice bench and get on with my knitting. There's a lovely little park just near here where I live. The Gilded Park, it's called. Gentleman donated it to the city, you know. Put a smile on Londoners' faces, he said. Can't imagine such a fine young gentleman would have it in him. Take another man's life.
He's doing wonderful things for the city. That's right. A man like that wouldn't stab someone, surely.
Mother, may we go to the McGilded Public Library later and borrow some more books?
How many Londoners live with their heads in the clouds? Do you people not know what kind of a man Magnus McGilded is?
Kind of a man he is.
Philanthropist Magnus McGilded has enough wealth to purchase the entire city he used to value so highly. But where did all that wealth come from? Client is a Shylock, sir, and one with the very darkest of souls.
What? Stone the crows!
The Gilded lends money at an extraordinary rate of interest, so his victims have no hope of repaying him. In default, his possession of everything they own,
He is a vulture that preys on the weak.
I've never heard any mention of that before.
Your faculties haven't deserted you, I'm sure, madame. So has this thought not crossed your mind? The man wealthy enough to buy London in its entirety not have a carriage of his own. Possible reason could this man have had to make use of public omnibus service? You're not saying that victim or brickmaker had next to nothing to name, save considerable financial liability. Come as no surprise that his creditor was the accused, Miss McGilden. Let it also be known, the very day Mr. Mason was killed was the final repayment date of his debts.
Good gracious.
Brickmaker was destitute, lost his house, he had not a shilling with which to repay his debts. And his pitiful soul had the very last thing he could get from him, his life. By the merciless philanthropist pretender Magnus McGilden.
Believe it. If I might add something briefly.
Miss Sasato?
You claim the victim had been lent money by Mr. McGilden. But where is the evidence to support your claim?
Also, where did that bottle of wine come from? Pray forgive the discourtesy of filling my hallowed chalice in a court of law. Ha, there it is. Lord Van Syke's hallowed chalice.
How can this be considered acceptable?
Get used to it. There's going to be a lot of this kind of crap. But I find myself in unexpectedly. Good ladies from the Far East could show great courage. Expect to experience it myself.
Ah! As judicial assistant to the defense, I am simply doing my job.
Pity that your display of courage is in vain. This is the debtor's ledger, which details all monies loaned by the accused. Find the victims clearly recorded inside.
Oh!
Allow me to present this ledger as evidence. And pray forgive the discourtesy of raising my chalice in a toast to the enigmatic East at the same time. Marvelous toast, Counsel. Will gladly accept this new evidence. Catalog of people who had borrowed money from the defendant at a high rate of interest. Includes the victim who owed 20 guineas. Ah yes, 20 guineas. The victim owed a considerable sum. Accused made quite certain he had ample recompense.
Well, it would seem I've had the wool pulled over my eyes.
Regrettably, madame, that is the modus operandi of the accused.
And it's such a pretty little park, too. What a scoundrel. Still, maybe it's all for the best.
Wait a minute. Let's think about this a little more before...
I don't stand for nonsense.
Did we already lose? That was it. Last year's decision.
According to this Encyclopedia of British Law, when all members of the jury have concluded that the defendant is guilty, court proceedings are suspended, and the presiding judge will deliver the final verdict and sentence. That's what it says here.
The final verdict. It's over then.
Oh! There's a footnote, though.
A footnote?
However, the defense...
All 6 members of the jury are now in agreement in this case.
allow me to convey my respect for your swift and righteous decision. According to the laws of this country, I will now conclude the trial by delivering my final verdict. Trust there are no objections. Sasato, please, tell me one thing.
Oh, yes?
You were in the middle of saying something before. Footnote in your Encyclopedia of British Law. However, the defense... What did it say next?
Oh, yes, of course. Oh, one moment. When all members of the jury have concluded that the defendant is guilty, court proceedings are suspended and the presiding judge will deliver the final verdict and sentence. Then the footnote says, however, the defense has the right to demand a summation examination of the jurors at this point.
Oh, what's this? Summation examination?
Objection!
Summation examination. From which century has that tome you have there been resurrected?
Ah!
The binding, say that book is at least 50 years old. Modern text on British law wouldn't even give such an antiquated procedure a mention. It's a relic, long forgotten, certainly no longer practiced. So you're out of luck.
Oh.
And is it, Mrs. Sato? So-called summation examination.
Oh, one moment, and I'll read about it.
Demand the right to a procedure before you even understand what it entails. Typical Nipponese.
Alright, Mr. Naruhodo, I think I understand. It seems that under this procedure, we would be able to appeal to the members of the jury.
To do what exactly?
Appeal to them to change their leaning and reverse their decisions. And it says here that, if successful, the proceedings of the trial must be resumed.
Reverse their decisions? Yes, in times gone by, barristers would use a summation examination to attempt to influence the jury's decision. Procedure became something of formality with no practical benefit, really, so it rather fell out of use.
I wonder why.
Because it was void of purpose. Changing just one member of the jury's mind would be hard enough, let alone several. Self-respecting barrister would even assert his right to try in this day and age.
Still, I don't see any mention of the procedure actually being formally revoked.
What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that although it may be antiquated and largely forgotten, it isn't yet extinct. What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo?
I think we're out of options. A summation examination. It's a possible option. Assert our right to carry it out or admit defeat. No, we're not just gonna forget it! The defense wishes to assert its right to a summation examination, my lord.
Objection!
London is the capital city of the most powerful nation on earth. Duty to the world to exemplify the very highest standards of judicial procedure. Summation examinations are an embarrassment that should remain buried.
Objection!
But if it's our right, it's our right! I believe it could prove vital in this trial. This petition is perfectly valid. Court will proceed with the summation examination. This is madness. Foreman, are you and the remainder of the jury ready? I'm not, there was no mention of this in the letter I received, you see, so... All members of the jury will be asked to explain on what grounds they have reached their decision. On what grounds? You must all justify your decisions and explain why you believe the defendant to be guilty. Well, my lord, you're rather putting us on the spot.
This is most irregular. No mention was made of this before.
I don't really hold with all this justifying, Lark. Seems to have thrown the jurors off.
It seems none of them have experienced this before.
Alright then, station examination. Let's go ahead and take a peek at that ledger before we do this. Portfolio must contain all sorts of secrets of London's gentry.
Oh dear, do you really think we ought to look inside?
Not as though we know any of London's gentry personally, is it? Or from our great detective friend, perhaps. Actually, I wonder.
I assure you, we will not find Mr. Sholmes' name inside.
Well, let's see what we find. He did say that he saw it after he stopped the carriage, so there is some wiggle room.
Gosh, it's crammed full of gentlemen's names, isn't it?
I suppose they're probably not all gentlemen at all, are they? Well, not everyone in this country is well off.
Ah, goodness!
What is it?
Look at this! Do you see the name here?
Bruce Fairplay. Aha! Somebody was owed him money. Somebody who was a witness. Did that mean something to me? It does sound strangely familiar, actually.
Bruce Fairplay, the witness testifying at this very moment.
Oh yes, of course, the banker. What's his name in here? Ah, he borrowed 20 guineas, did he? The repayment date is fast approaching.
It's possible that this is just a coincidence, of course. This could be very useful information.
That gives us something to work on. Okay, it's the same thing. Okay. Defense procedure no practicing lawyer has attempted for years, is it? Just maybe. It might be the opportunity we've been looking for. To turn this trial around. So be it, then, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. The court hereby calls upon you to state the grounds on which you find the defendant, Magnus McGilded, guilty of this most serious crime. So far, it's the only thing we've got to even work with. Alright. There's no one else inside the carriage at the time, so it must have been him.
Trust the driver. He has an excellent memory, it seems. 4 passengers, with fares totaling 20 pence.
He stuck the chap next to him, just like this. Brazen, I must say. Absolutely brazen.
I have simply typed and collected all the statements made thus far and drawn the logical conclusion.
You trust the guild. Fair trades is our motto. We haven't raised prices above 4 pence for years.
The scoundrel! Stabbing that poor man on the floor. It beggars belief.
That doesn't give us a lot to work with. Starting to wish I hadn't pushed for this now.
Some of the jurors don't seem to have wonderfully formed arguments, though, do they?
Well, let's see what we can do. 6 people to change their minds. Everything I can at them. Some very persuasive language.
Just a moment, Mr. Naruhodo. According to my book, that's not quite how it works.
Ooh. Thought I was going to have to thaw their icy minds with some heartwarming rhetoric about the defendant.
Unfortunately, once the jurors have decided the defendant is guilty, they're unlikely to heed anything the defense says. But then, they've reached their conclusions by their own reasoning, you see. Their pleas will sound like excuses. In fact, it could recoil on you. The more you try to persuade them, the more entrenched they may become.
Then what on earth am I supposed to do?
Oh dear, I'm just citing what I've read about British law, Mr. Naruhodo.
Right, I'm sorry. Any idea how to make this work, then?
Well, from what I understand, the key to this procedure is using the jurors' own words to make your arguments.
What do you mean?
Well, the 6 members of the jury are randomly selected members of the public. They may appear to present a unified front, but the truth is, they're complete strangers who just happen to find themselves here in the courtroom together.
And that's the way to break them down, you mean?
Yes, exactly. We must listen very carefully to what each member of the jury says, and see if they can identify any contradictory statements. If we can, Then we contrast the statements and pit the corresponding junior jurors against each other.
See, so it's contradictions in what 2 or more jurors say that we're looking for. Way then, similar to a regular cross-examination.
Oh, yes, I suppose you're right.
Add contradictions in their statements and pit the jurors against one another to break them down. Right? Pull this off. No, that's not right. Have to pull this off. We start proceedings, Counsel. I ask you to take the stand for this. I'm expecting a clear and concise rebuttal. Yes, my lord. So now we're standing in front of the dock, technically. No one else inside the carriage at that time, so it must have been him. Trust the driver. He has an excellent memory, it seems. 4 passengers with fares totaling 20 pence. I bet the prices are probably going to be what we can pit against each other. 4 passengers, 20 pence, so 5 pence each. Aha! Although I will press first. Does his ability to recall his takings at night really tell us how trustworthy the man is? I manage all his lordship's cash affairs, so I'm very particular when it comes to accounts. Let's see. A single penny can mean the difference between life and death, after all, can't it? That's a saying in your country? My point is, a man who finds his figures is a man you can trust. Those of us in service would swear to that, sir. Didn't you really need any more polishing? The good driver says he saw Mr. McGildet in the act. I don't doubt him. Only task left to do today is disposing of the rubbish. Wait a minute. The jurors mentioned something about money, I think.
Now would be a very good time to listen carefully to the jurors' statements again, Mr. Naruhodo. If you notice an inconsistency in what 2 different jurors are saying,
I should expose it by pitting them against each other. See if I can do just that. Alright? Alright, we're gonna pit you.
Objection!
Those 2 statements clearly contradict each other. They do. Explain yourself, Counsel.
Me? Oh dear, what have I said?
I swear on Silverblaze's mane and name I haven't the first idea what you're talking about. According to the group testimony we've heard so far, there were 4 passengers on the omnibus on the night in question. According to the coachman, Mr. Beppo, he took 20 pence in fares. Quite right. I have those precise details tagged neatly here in front of me. And juror number 5 also told us the following. Fare for the omnibus is always 4 pence. And it is. A fair and convenient single price. Just the way London's carriages should be operated. That doesn't add up at all. In fact, there's a glaring discrepancy in the facts. Ah! It's not that he charged 5 pence each. It's that there was another fare. I was just thinking in terms of the math not adding up, but of course. It would have been 16 pence had it been 4 people, but if it was 5, it would be 20. Why, men, why? Passengers paying 4 pence each. Do the multiplication. Ah! It would be 16 pence! Exactly. As I said, it doesn't add up. Figures are different. 4 pence, in fact. Precisely 1 person's fare. 1 person's fare. Yes, in other words, on the omnibus that night, it's distinctly possible there was another passenger we've heard nothing about. Good gracious! This can't be right. Coachmen of the guild are good, honest men, one and all. Trustworthiness is our watchword.
Figures your coachman claims certainly do not add up. Your watchword, good sir, is a fallacy.
I beg your pardon.
Mr. Guildmaster, you ought to consider that if this trial were to end now, this will surely spread all over London. It is that one of your coachmen tried to hide the fact that he lets nefarious characters ride his omnibus.
Yeah, it's interesting. Alright then, how do I make it so this miserable trial doesn't end,
Well, according to my book here, you simply launch a ball of fire into the innocent side of the set of scales.
No, hold your horses there, coachman. We're all in agreement. Why do you have to go it? Wait till I get my hands on you, Beppo. It's no longer unanimous! We're still in this thing. This is all very irritating.
Begging your pardon, sir. I'm going to do the same.
For the love of Mike! Not you as well.
And it can be the difference between a smile and a tear, after all. I certainly can't put my trust in someone who doesn't follow my exacting standards in financial matters.
Oh, really?
I, for one, think it's only proper that we hear from the witnesses again.
Oh, well done, Mr. Naruhodo, you did it! We can manage to change 2 more jurors' minds. We can force the trial to continue.
More, actually. There's something else that's bothering me about a couple of their assertions.
That's where you must strike next.
We need to pit 2 more jurors against each other and show there's another contradiction in their assertions.
Exactly! You can do it!
Well, the scales of justice have shifted. They still weigh heavily on the side of guilt. Counsel, have the floor again. Continue with your summation examination.
In changing my leading to innocent, I should like to hear what the slipshod bookkeeper has to say for himself.
Stuck the chap next to him, just like this. Brazen, I must say. Absolutely brazen. Simply typed and collated all the statements made thus far and drawn the logical conclusion.
And Beppo, this trial has to continue so I can get to the bottom of this corruption. Not guilty, I say.
The scoundrel stabbing that poor man on the floor.
Wait. On the floor? What were you listening to?
Objection!
These 2 statements are completely contradictory. What? Explain, counsel, post-haste.
Oh, dearie me! I was only knitting a jumper for my other half.
So this claptrap. What does contradictory even mean, I ask you?
Heard from more than one witness. They allegedly saw the actual moment when the defendant stabbed the victim. Out of curiosity, juror number 3.
What? Can't you see I'm busy here?
How would you say the defendant stabbed the victim? What sort of motion was it?
Ha! Want to test me, do you? Like this. Stuck the fella next to him without even getting up, just like the prim banker said. Yes, that was Mr. Fairplay's testimony. Quite true.
Now then, juror number 6.
Oh, is that me, is it? What can I do for you? Young man?
How would you say the defendant stabbed the victim, madam?
Oh, well, dear, as far as I understand it, it was like this. He stabbed the poor man after he collapsed on the floor. The coachman said so.
Now don't move.
Take a look at these 2 jurors. Stuck the fella next to him without even getting up. And he stabbed the poor man after he'd collapsed on the floor.
Well, I never. They're stabbing in totally different directions.
What? Bless my stitches. What a muddle.
This tells us there's a strong possibility one of the witnesses isn't telling the truth.
Oh, but
Why? Why the dickens would he lie? Don't know that yet. Do know. Trial ends at this point. Never find out. Never know the real truth. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, can you really let that happen in all good conscience?
Lies, you say? Oh, dearie me. I can't abide people telling lies.
You and me both, sister.
The scales.
I don't believe it. Wait. Now hear this, my fellow jurors. I warn you, you cannot listen to this man. Look at him in his black suit. He's clearly some devious Eastern sorcerer using magic on us all.
Use magic? Do you really think I'd be putting myself through all of this?
Answer me this, Dark Jinx. Huh? Me? What exactly is the problem? What of it if two witnesses have slightly different recollections of events? What of it? Let's say the Shylock did stab the victim as he sat next to him on the omnibus. This young daddy saw him do it. And now let's say the victim collapsed on the floor. Then the Shylock stabbed him again. Well, we've got the proof. This old lady saw him do it. Well, what's to say it didn't happen like that, Who are you calling a dandy, sir? Why, I should take this knife to you.
Who are you calling old? Why, I should take this needle to you.
They're ready to kill each other now. Could the foreman of the jury be right? Two witnesses see two different moments of the same crime. Oh, no. No, shoot, I didn't realize. I want to go back. There's an outside chance of almost anything you care to mention. Exactly the point I've been trying to make.
Before you go any further, Mr. Naruhodo.
Oh, what is it, Miss Susato?
I think you should have a look through the court record.
Yeah,
You see, this evidence makes it quite clear. There isn't even an outside chance of what the juror is saying.
I missed that. I didn't. I just pressed the button too many times. Unfortunately, Mr. Foreman. What is it, you Dark Jinx? Come on, out with it. You're suggesting is impossible. Out of the question. What are you talking about, man? How could you possibly say that? You do realize that I'm only doing my job. As women of the jury, I have a responsibility to steer everyone in the right direction. So where's your evidence, man? That's what I want to see. I say the two witnesses saw two different moments of the same crime. You say that's out of the question. Show me some proof. Looks like the only way I'm going to convince him is to present him with something he can't dismiss. Irrefutable hard evidence. If you wish. What? I'll give you the proof. Out of the question, the two witnesses saw two different moments of the same crime as proven by the single stab wound.
Take that!
And yeah, he is about to get Caesared. This is the victim's autopsy report. And what's written here, Mr. Mason was stabbed in the abdomen. Only once. Only once? Quite simple. The victim was stabbed precisely one time. Which means these witnesses can't possibly have seen it happen two different times. Alright, I concede defeat. Wait, that means... Why do you have the frantic look on your face now, of all times? Or jurors are now leaning to not guilty.
We've done it, Mr. Naruhodo!
We've won! We haven't won yet. What are you playing at, you dandy fool? Shut your trap, sir. Someone deceives me. But we had a consensus. I said shut your trap. I know a liar when I see one. If a chap ever dares to cross the threshold of my shop, I'll take the razor-sharp blade and shave every last hair off his head. Please tell me he's a barber. Well, quite a remarkable turn of events. The summation examination has flipped the balance of the scales of justice. The jurors now stand at 2 for guilty and 4 for not guilty. Accordingly, no longer a large enough majority among the jurors for me to educate. The trial must continue. They're throwing all sorts of new things into this. I hereby ask the defense, prosecution, and witnesses to return to their places. Why do I have a strong suspicion the last case is going to involve everything we've had so far? I call upon all of you to continue to pursue the truth. The finished shares later will be free. So, Lord Van Seeks, continue to substantiate the case for the prosecution, if you please. Oh, he's mad. Having savored the rich aroma of the carmine contents of this hallowed chalice, it seemed crass to crush it to dust. Pray forgive the discourtesy. What is a man? Lord Van Seeks? Is it cold in here, or is it just me? Your antiquated tome no doubt says the prosecution may not speak during a summation examination. I honored a deathly silence. I listened to the charade. It seems I overestimated the legends of the jury. Well, no matter. Nothing so hard to prove as a self-evident truth, it would seem. No. Why else would we grace the courtroom, since after all? So, let's proceed to the next round of battle. Bring forth the witnesses once more. Witnesses, I trust you heard the summation examination we have just had to endure. Oh, yes, sir. That I did, sir. Of course I heard it. Oh, yes, sir. I heard it. You, sir, on the end, the coachman. I believe it's Beppo. Yes, sir. My lord, sir. Transpires that in your previous testimony, you were attempting to veil the presence of a 5th passenger on omnibus, will be found guilty of perjury. You are advised to bear that in mind, sir. Oh, mio Dio, Now then, witnesses, I hereby call on you to testify before the court again. Explain the various misgivings brought to our attention by the defense's summation examination. I only carried 4 passengers that night. I swear it. But well, I for once was told I had to pay 5 pence for the bus. Riddled us on the ferry did. And I saw that blood-curdling sight as well. It's all too much. I tell you, I saw McGilded stabbing that man. Everything I said before stands. Oh, yes, he stabbed him. Yes, he did. So, yes. You think so? Counsel, make sense of this for me, please. Phantom 5th passenger, conjured into existence by my learned Eastern friend, never existed. Confusion has arisen. Coachman's sly little cozenage. Beppo, explain yourself. Why weren't you at Coachman's practice? I'm terribly sorry, Guildmaster. Guild's fare is 4 pence across the board. You know that. Might I understand that you've been overcharging our passengers by a penny a fare?
last run of the day is always half empty.
Been dishonest, Coach.
I'm sorry.
You're a disgrace, Beppo. A disgrace. And your selfish actions have brought dishonor on the entire guild.
If I may, sir, I had to pay 10 pence on the bus just last week.
What?
4 passengers at 5 pence each is, yes, 20 pence. I've done the arithmetic 10 times already, but I just can't make the result come out differently.
No, that figures. Literally. Well, it would appear that one of the aforementioned misgivings has already been explained. So, counsel for the defense, your cross-examination, if you please. Already had the pleasure of a protracted summation examination today. Continue the parlor games. Absolutely. So, there were only 4 passengers on your carriage, but you didn't charge them the standard 4 pence fare. Is that right?
It's impossible to make the last run of the day pay. It's so cold. All I could do was stop myself from passing out.
Chill, Blaine's just listening to you.
It was terrible, so I wanted to give myself a pat on the back for even keeping the bus running. Wasn't a dedicated coachman to reserve an extra penny per passenger?
Digging a deeper hole for yourself here. Been a 5th passenger on the omnibus that night. We would have another suspect. Well, I, for one, was told I had to pay 5 pence for the bus. Does that mean everyone on board that night paid 5 pence instead of 4?
Well, I paid 5 pence too, sir.
Just told you that I did.
A flat fare of 5 pence across the board.
It's not something to be proud of. So-called discrepancy my learned friend identified was nothing of the sort. It's like that phantom killer you so desperately is gone, dead and buried. Happy if it had ever existed in the first place.
Fiddled us on the ferry, did. And then I saw that blood-curdling sight as well. It's all too much.
Get some more detail on that.
This blood-curdling sight. You mean the murder, I presume? Yes, sir.
Loathsome sight. No one should have to witness the horror of the eyes of a man the moment his life is taken.
Oh, well, not exactly, sir. I mean, I didn't actually see the exact moment the gent was stabbed.
Did you not? Good gracious! Really? We have another witness who did, however. Banker has already testified.
But first didn't actually see the point at which the victim was killed. Turned out to be very significant. I heard the banker gent next to me take a sharp intake of breath, see? And that's when I looked through the glass. That's when I saw that horrible blade poking out from his belly, all covered in blood. I see a knife now. I can't help screaming when I'm eating.
I tell you, I saw McGilton stabbing that man. Everything I said before stands.
So you saw the defendant, Mr. McGilded, stabbing the victim, Mr. Mason, who was sitting next to him.
That's what I said, isn't it?
During the before, this was. Just a brief moment.
He hesitated before answering the question. Anyway, only 2 of them inside the carriage, wasn't there? Much talk of a 5th passenger, but as of yet, 0 evidence. That's what we're all wasting this time for, eh? It's black and white. The man's guilty. Something about Mr. Fairplay's testimony just jars with me. I forget what it was. Oh, yes, he stabbed him. Yes, he did. I think so, yes. You think so. Earlier, you testified that you saw the moment when the defendant allegedly stabbed the victim, didn't you? Oh, yes, that's right. You said that the victim was on the floor and described the assailant holding the knife in an ice pick grip. I suppose I might have, yes, put the cart before the horse, maybe.
What's this?
Well, I'm quite sure about most of it. I was driving the horses when I heard a scream from the seats on the roof deck.
Oh, I expected that was me, sir.
Then when it turned around, yes, saw it through the skylight. The gentleman was on the floor, and the knife was sticking up out of his midriff. That's right, yes, and the fellow holding the handle was the famous man, yes.
So in short, I didn't see the moment when the victim was actually stabbed at all.
I really thought I did, but when I go over it again in my head, no, I suppose I didn't actually see the precise moment of the stabbing, did I?
Excuse me.
Pardon me. Do you have something to say about that, Mr. Fairplay? Now you listen to me. I know what you're thinking. You didn't really see the exact moment the fellow was stabbed. What are the chances of that? Are you asking me or telling me? I'm flustered. Extract some new information from him if I answer him cleverly. Just happened to see the exact moment the crime was committed. No. Well, it's a little hard to believe, certainly. Spend your time peeping through a skylight on the top of an omnibus, that is. Peeping? I'm a respectable city banker, I'll have you know. I know what I saw. I remember it as clearly as a Ballarat day. It's a grim scene, I don't mind telling you. Thank you, Mr. Fairplay. Oh, excuse me if I was getting a little hot under the collar there, my lord. I would ask you to supplement your testimony with a clear statement about what exactly you saw. Oh, I can do that, all right. I'll tell you just how grim it was. Operation Planar was won by Marauder doing absolutely nothing. Forces presence were Do you think I'd forget the sight of those blood-soaked hands after the butcher stabbed the man? Hands. Blood-soaked? Well, perhaps soaked is laying it on a bit thick, but anyway, there was definitely blood all over them. Both of them were covered in it. Aha! That is contradictory to the evidence. You saw that from the roof, through the skylight. Well, the skylight's reasonably large, so I had a pretty good view. There was a lamp on the inside of the carriage as well, so I'm quite sure of what I saw. His latest statement. Sure, there's something not quite right about it.
When you feel something doesn't add up, Mr. Naruhodo, that's when you should have a good look through the court record.
Long ago, this trial very nearly came to an end. Somehow we've managed to keep our chances alive here. Can't waste this cross-examination. I have to use it,
and bring some new facts to light.
If you're not careful when you press these witnesses, the danger is the jury will end up believing something unhelpful as they did before.
Maybe. Can't let the fear of that happening stop us from uncovering new information. Yeah, we are on the third case. It's like, come on, man, trust me.
Yes, you're so right.
Like, pay careful attention here. Miss even a flicker of a reaction among these witnesses.
Remember, if you happen to spot one of the witnesses reacting in a strange way, don't hesitate to pursue them as to the reason.
Blood-soaked hands. Well, I admit that soap might have been laying on a little thick, but anyway, there was definitely blood all over them. Both of them were covered in it. Oh, that is a cocky stance there. Well, I'm very sorry to disagree, Mr. Fairplay, but that's more than a little peculiar. What? These are the gloves worn by the defendant, Mr. McGilded, on the night in question. Oh, yes, right. There certainly does appear to be a sizable dark-colored stain there. As I'm sure you can clearly see, it's only on the right-hand glove. In short, Mr. Fairplay, your testimony is inconsistent. But no! That can't be right! So you're the liar here, then! That's right, you were quite clear about it. You said it was both hands. Mr. Fairplay, your last statement was a lie. It calls your entire testimony into question. You might say that you say you saw the moment the victim was stabbed, but is that really the truth? No, well...
Objection!
It's a simple mistake. You can't justify accusing this man of lying. Yes, it wasn't both hands. It was only one, but the fact remains. The victim's blood was on the accused.
Objection!
No, Mr. Fairplay categorically stated that he saw blood all over both hands, which means there's a strong possibility that this witness was deliberately trying to mislead the court. Yeah, exactly. He's got motive to lie.
Why? I'm a city banker, for pity's sake. My word should be the gold standard. A gentleman, not some gutter snipe. Upstanding members of society don't prevaricate.
He's claiming to have no reason to lie. Ah, here's where the motive comes in. Is that really the case?
Mr. Naruhodo, if we had some evidence to explain why Mr. Fairplay might be lying, it could turn the tide in this trial completely.
Something to show the man has a compelling reason to lie in his testimony. We do have evidence. My lord.
Yes, counsel.
Prevaricate. Excuse me. The defense is ready to present evidence.
By Jove! Are you sure?
Yes, evidence that will clearly demonstrate why Mr. Fairplay had reason to lie in his testimony.
Very well. I hereby call on the defense to present its evidence. The evidence that demonstrates a motive for the witness's alleged deception of the court.
Take that!
This is a list of the debtors who owe money to Mr. McGilded.
Yes, a list of innocent victims crippled by the accused extortions.
Point is, among the names on the debtors is your name, Mr. Bruce Fairplay.
What? Mr. Fairplay, are you currently indebted financially to the accused? No, well, it's barely worthy of being called a debt.
According to this ledger, you owe 20 guineas. Not an inconsiderable sum of money, wouldn't you say?
What of it? let's suppose Mr. McGilded were to be found guilty of murder. What would become of your dad in that case? These documents state that the loan agreement is forged between two individual parties. Therefore, were the creditor, the defendant here, to be sentenced to a capital punishment, all outstanding debts which were owed to him would be annulled, cease to exist.
Cease to exist?
Mr. Fairplay, is it not the case that you claimed in your testimony to have seen something you never in fact saw, in a devious attempt to annul your debt of 20 guineas to the defendant? No. Order! Order! Mr. Fairplay! Yes, my logged... logged... I'm sorry, I gotta do this right. Yes, my log... Let me ask you again. Be aware that your answer may have most serious implications upon your future, sir. Did you or did you not see the precise moment in time at which the defendant is alleged to have thrust the knife into the victim? Your silence speaks volumes. You did not tell the truth in your testimony. Alright, let's not make a melodrama out of this. Perhaps I did overstate the truth a pinch. A pinch? Makes no difference. Definitely remember seeing blood on McGilded's hands. Both of them. And yet, only one of the defendant's gloves, which we have here as evidence, is stained. So you keep saying. I wonder if I might be allowed to speak, sir. Go ahead, Mr. First. Well, the thing is, I think I remember seeing it myself, as it happens. Seeing what? The blood, sir, on the assailant's hands. I think... yes. I'm almost sure that it was on both of his hands, not just the one. What? What? Hey, Hollow. Seem we're going to need further testimony from all you witnesses. This time, I would like to know precisely what you did and what you did not see. Do I make myself perfectly clear?
Mr. Naruhodo, this is good news. The course of the trial seems to have slightly shifted at last.
Yes. Might finally have a chance to turn things around here. Blood on both the hands of the assailant. I clearly and distinctly remember that. However, I suppose you might say I didn't see the exact moment the stabbing transpired. Matters. I remember seeing the knife. I remember seeing both of the attacker's hands with blood on them. I didn't actually see anything myself. No, not until I heard the scream. Anyway, fact remains, there can't have been anyone else inside that carriage, or we all would have seen. Well, lo and behold. Truth of fact, not one of you was witness to the crucial moment the crime was perpetrated. I apologize, my lord, but honestly... there was no one else inside that carriage, and the man's hands were covered in blood. That much incriminating evidence is tantamount to saying that we saw the man do it. That's really not what testimony is about. Let us examine the interior of the omnibus once more. Victim's fresh blood is clearly visible on the seat, corroborating the witnesses' accounts. In other words, no substantial nor significant change in the facts of the case. Very well. Your cross-examination, please, counsel.
Yes, my lord. As a bunch of thieves broke into a special only report on what happened is that the men inside had a lot of fun with the two men. Possibly so. Hollow, did I miss something? As I feel like I'm in the middle of a conversation that I didn't see the other part of. Okay. I'm gonna press this one first. Everything you saw of the incident was through the skylight on the roof of the omnibus. That's right. It was fiercely cold that night, but the glass wasn't frosted over. Oh yes, I remember I was shivering. It was so bitter. Which rather begs the question of why the pair of you were sitting on the roof deck in the first place. I mean, what you're saying is interesting. I just don't understand the context. Well, I don't know about this young fellow, but I couldn't enter the cabin. Oh, why not? Oh, terminology. Locked from the inside. Tried knocking, but no one opened the door. Locked? That's right, and it's a public bus service, for pity's sake. That's not what I call fair play. Yes, I had exactly the same experience. Tried knocking, yet inside just gestured at me to clear off. No choice but to climb up to the roof deck and look down longingly into the warm cabin below.
I can assure you I wasn't just looking down, I was glaring long and hard. That's precisely why I could tell you with absolute confidence that if there was anyone else in that cabin, I would have noticed. Unequivocal, I would say.
Not sure that not these two witnesses. Could they have seen everything inside the cabin? The skylight? Not everything. Allow me to confirm one thing, Mr. Fairplay. You were riding this omnibus and witnessed the events in the cabin through the skylight in the roof on the upper deck. Is that right?
That's right, yes.
That case, there was a portion of the cabin interior that would have been out of sight from you.
What?
By golly, really? Obviously, at this stage, we can't say for sure. But the possibility cannot be denied that at the time of the incident, there could have been another passenger in the enclosed cabin of the omnibus.
Objection!
Enough hypothetical meandering, my Nipponese friend. Prosecution demands that you substantiate your claims. After all, the scene of the crime is here in the flesh. Very well. Hold the prosecution's demand. Identify the area on this cross-sectional plan of the omnibus. Where exactly in the omnibus are you suggesting that this potential extra passenger could have been situated?
Right there. Both rows of seats on the roof face in the direction of travel, whereas the seats in the enclosed cabin face each other, which means the visible part of the cabin which passengers on the roof deck can see through the skylight, as I've drawn here. Ah, that's right, my lord. As you can see,
The seat opposite the one on which the victim and his attacker were sitting is obscured from view. In other words, if someone had been sitting on that seat, quite possible that these witnesses would have been completely unaware of it. Gah!
Objection!
It's quite possible some phantom was sitting there. You Nipponese have a forbidding habit of obscuring the truth with ambiguity. I concur with the prosecution's rejoinder. In this court of law, evidence is paramount. You cannot entertain this conjecture, counsel. It is, unless you're able to put a name to this mysterious passenger to whom you allude.
Can you, Mr. Naruhodo?
No, we don't have a clue who it was. Honestly, don't know. Who could it have been? Who could have been in the other seat, which was out of sight from the witnesses on the roof deck? Well, there's not any luggage in there, I don't think. I think it's all just stuff. Well, that one looks like a suitcase. No. Those are all tools. Yeah, there's no luggage in there. Okay, so that's out. Any luggage anywhere on here? I don't think so. In that case, we don't really have anything. Anything in here to suggest a name? No. We've got a clue. Look that way. Oh, well, there's only one side that's got a handle. Because it's not actually made for storing luggage. It's actually just for supplies for the carriage. So we don't have anything in... We don't have a clue who it is. Unless there's... I'm gonna look at the people, see if there's anything. Nope. He's only 32? I have no idea who it is. I have literally no idea.
As a proud citizen of the Japanese Empire, you will look to the sky and walk on, making sure all signs of tears are gone. Go on.
This isn't just a case of going on, Mrs. Sato. Alright then, I'll go on. Defense would like to put forward a name. For a fool. The response was a desperate attempt by a man who has no notion of his own limitations. Toast to hard lessons not yet learned. Let's not delay, counsel. The defense is still to name the I don't know who it is! Name the passenger in the other seat. This could be it. This could be the chance I've been waiting for to turn the trial in my favor. Unless... have... have him. What? Back behind him. Riding. Well, that matches. Oh, it looks different. No. We can examine the blood stain. Blood soaked into the seat of the victims, obviously.
Yeah, so that seat would be clearly visible from the roof deck.
Steps went in full view of the other passengers like that?
Well, it was after dark. There's a lamp over there, so perhaps the culprit couldn't see.
Yeah, we've already said that. No, just that it's hard. And only has space for 2 people. And it does match up. Well, the image doesn't. Looks a little different, but not enough to. This could be the chance I've been waiting for to turn the trial in my favor. That night of the murder, the person occupying the seat in the omnibus cabin that was obscured from view was. Okay, well, it could have been Sasato, could have been Mile, could have been Mason, been Beppo or Bruce Fairplay or Lady First. He's the Lord Chief Justice. He's the one who we met with at the very beginning and who. It's kind of what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if he was sitting opposite of him. Did he? I don't even remember. And it doesn't go back far enough for me to actually double check that, but it's the only thing that I can pin at, so I'm going with that. Passenger in the enclosed cabin that the witnesses on the roof deck failed to see must have been Mr. Magnus McGilded. Mr. McGilded? What are you talking about, Counsel? That's the name of the defendant.
Objection!
What is a lawyer? I desecrate this chamber by smashing my hallowed chalice. Do forgive the discourtesy. Lord Van Seeks! Talk of those tiny island nations in the Far East as having a learning culture of their own. I see they use terms ill-advisedly. Trying to say. Let me explain. A student of an artless backwater such as yourself might understand. Bloody scene unfolded. The victim and his assailant were sitting side by side. Multiple witnesses have attested to this fact, the very premise on which this case is built. That premise may be wrong. What? If the victim really was sitting beside Mr. McGilded, it creates an inconsistency that can't be reconciled in any way. What inconsistency, counsel? The defendant's gloves, my lord. Right-handed. If he was right-handed, he would have had to have reached all the way across himself. I mean, it's not inconceivable that you could turn and stab, but certainly not quite as simple. My defendant's gloves, my lord. Both witnesses made the same testimony. They claimed there was blood on both the hands of the person sitting next to the victim.
Objection!
Yet we truth to be otherwise. Only one glove bears the gory remains. Point is, even in the face of this irrefutable evidence, both witnesses have maintained their stance. Yes, their testimony remains unchanged. Exactly. They both adamantly swear that they clearly remember seeing blood on both hands of the assailant. In short, their memory of events is correct and their testimony reveals the truth. It was somebody else sitting beside the victim that night. Third party we have yet to identify. The victim's blood was on that passenger's hands, both of them. Who was this third party? Obviously, the true culprit. Extraordinary! Order! Order! What exactly are you postulating? Since this postulation is just that, nothing more than conjecture. Witnesses have clearly stated that they saw the accused. But when elaborating on his testimony, Mr. Fairplay said the two of them were wearing hats and I couldn't exactly make out their faces. Yes. Tops of their heads were obscured by the roof. Could see the rest of them, though. Yeah, that's right. Both gents were most certainly hatted. Hatters do tend to notice such things, sir. What particular styles of hat did the two gentlemen sport, Mr. First? I'm afraid I don't remember. Can you call yourself a hatter? Style of hat makes no difference. There was no third passenger in that cabin. How can you be sure? Because if there had been, accused Gilded would undoubtedly have offered to depose the fact. Unless, that is, you are proposing an even more preposterous explanation. The accused failed to notice the presence of the true culprit in the very cabin in which he traveled. Ah! That's a complicating factor, sure. Right. There's another person traveling in the enclosed cabin of the omnibus. Conceivable that Mr. McGilded would have been aware of it. Order! It's clearly a simple solution to this problem. Accuse Mr. McGilded to the stand. Oh, what say you, counsel? Prosecution objects, my lord. On what grounds? As a suspect, he will already have made a full statement to the police. But what if there's some reason why he's unable to speak freely? Agnes McGilded is no uneducated ruffian. if it indeed turns out that the man has been with the nation. Sure, in a most deliberate act. Counsel for the defense, what is your opinion?
My lord, is Mr. McGilda to testify or not? Yes, we need to hear what he has to say in order to find out the truth. The defense would like to call Mr. McGilda to the stand. Well, he's doing it more confidently, at least in terms of raising his hand.
In that case, I would like to hear the opinion of the jury. Yes, I need a little time to consider this.
If you ask me, I think we should hear what Mr. McGilden has to say.
Get the man out here, I say.
It would be utterly illogical not to hear his testimony.
Something needs doing, get it done. That's how I run things at the guild.
Hearing what the patron of my favorite little park has to say? Oh yes, that would be lovely.
Yes, the jury says the man must be heard. Very well, the court will hear the defendant's testimony. Bailiff, show the defendant to the stand at once.
Now maybe what actually happened that night finally become clear.
Let proceedings be resumed. Although, actually...
I'm tempted to stop here, since this gives a fairly good break. As I don't know how much longer this particular section's gonna go for. We'll keep going. We go in the bit between the defendant, the prosecution, the jury, and the judge with an express mission from the judge. The bailiff gets to tackle you. I've never seen that happen, but that sounds right. You are not allowed to enter the... you're not allowed to go down there unless you ask permission. Very important in real life.
Mr. McGilden, you've been listening to the discourse of the day.
To be sure I have, my lord.
There are now two matters on which the court desires to hear from you. First, is whether or not there was a third party with you in the omnibus cabin as proposed by the defense. Second, if such a person was indeed present, why did you conceal that fact from the police?
Again, no, 'tis not my nature to hide anything at all.
Just answer the questions, please.
Yeah, it doesn't match. The truth of the matter is, I've been desperate about this all along. Do I tell yous all, or keep my mouth shut? Unless what, Mr. McGilden? The fine fella representing me is absolutely right. In the carriage on that night, with myself and the other man, there was another passenger.
It's true!
Aye, and 'twas me who helped the little urchin get away after it all happened.
You...
What?!
Oh, Magnus McGilden. Convenient excuse, can't save you now.
I'm truly sorry, so I am, Lord Van Zeeks. I'm sure you'd be wanting to know why I said nothing when I was taken in by the police. Do be having a very good reason, I assure you. Yep, if it was a kid, or a young person at least.
Was?
Well, the little child was just in the wrong place at the wrong time and not in any way involved, you see.
What?
If the police had known the wee one was there, they'd have assumed she'd done it. They'd have hauled her into this here courtroom just like myself. Only trying to spare her that. Young hearts and young minds are easily damaged, my lord. The only problem is, a man is killed directly opposite of you in a locked carriage, and you didn't do it. Why on earth would you go, oh, well, we need to protect her? But yeah, probably the kid snuck on and didn't pay the fare. Yeah, makes sense. Who is this young child of whom you speak? That I don't know. Don't know. Well, the wee ting just happened to be in the carriage that night. Never saw her before or since. I have absolutely no reason to believe this man. Prosecution calls for the witnesses' statements to be disregarded by the court. You know, I wouldn't be surprised. The urchin isn't here in this courtroom as we speak, listening to the proceedings. What? Smoke! Ah! Fire! There's a fire! Someone's trying to get away! After them! It's no use! I can't see anything through the smoke! What's going on? Be careful, Mr. Naruhodo! Cover your face!
Bailiff, don't let the accused escape. Secure the omnibus. I hereby call an emergency recess. Bailiff, ensure the defendant is in custody and clear the courtroom.
We were hurriedly removed from the smoke-filled courtroom by the bailiff. Amid scenes of chaos as people stumbled over one another in their desperation to flee the chamber. No idea what was happening. We knew was that, for the time being at least, trial was suspended. There's our opportunity to stop. Glad I kept going. Whew. So somebody threw a smoke bomb. I'm guessing. Yeah, probably. Probably so. Gonna be interesting. I gotta admit, I'm impressed with how many different things the game keeps throwing my way. It keeps adding new elements to it, and it's like, that's actually pretty cool. I have to admit. Well, awesome, awesome, awesome. And that's something they've typically done, is added something... And that's add something new to additional chapters, to each new game, brings something new into the mix. It's pretty awesome. Alright, well, I think it's going to wrap us up for tonight. I'm really enjoying this. I'm surprised that we had an entire case that didn't involve the courtroom at all. And I'm wondering... I know there's like 5 or 6 chapters total in the game, but aren't there like... Isn't the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles like 2 games? Yeah. So, yeah. It's good. It's really good. Anyway. Thank you, Oh, yeah, you're right. There is another title screen. So, we got lots more to go. I'm really enjoying it. I really, really hope they do bring the, those other games to some platform I can stream off of. Oh, yeah, that's true. That was for game 2. Right. Alright, well, thank you, Glayliv. Thank you,
Hollow, thank you, Fortifier. At least one other person in... Okay. Droop Dog, Flashfire 42, or Arlad Mr. 88. One of you is a real person. Thank you as well. Oh yeah, I mean, you can't have somebody with the flamboyancy of Sholmes not be recurring. He's too good not to keep having come back. Let's give, we're gonna give a host over to, Flip, I think. And as a reminder, plus having a bumbling investigator that isn't Gumshoe is nice. He's actually good, just needs help noticing new things. Yeah, he's basically, he needs a Watson, although Watson mostly just was along for the ride, occasionally making observation, though usually not the correct one, simply because he didn't observe quite as much as Holmes. He was still competent. Yeah, and Naruhodo's thing is observation. Basically, they make a great pair. Anyway. Gonna host Flipsider. Just as a reminder, tomorrow will be movie night over on the Discord, as usual. And we will be starting our look at the Godfather and the Godfather Part 2. Might start a little bit early. Well, no, we'll probably start at the usual time. No, I probably will actually start a little bit early. Well, yeah, it'll be in the Discord. Anyway. Thank you all again for watching, and until next time, God bless.